If you didn't miss it while you were reading the book, is it even really a bad thing? No, it's not. Hello, my lovely friends. It's Margaret, and it is time to nerd out about Pride by Ibi Zoboi. Welcome to Fresh Reads Friday, my friends, the series where I tell you about something I have read recently. Pride is basically like this Pride and Prejudice remix, is how Ibi Zoboi kind of talks about it. It is about Zuri Benitez. She is an Afro-Latina teen living in the neighborhood of Bushwick in Brooklyn. She loves her neighborhood. She is proud of where she came from, proud of her family. She has 4 other sisters. At the moment, she's kind of stressing over college applications and the gentrification of her neighborhood. And then the big house across the street is bought and turned into a mansion, and a rich family moves in. Now, Zuri is not about these rich people moving in across the street, because every time someone affluent moves in, they want to start changing things about the way things are done in the neighborhood, and Zuri is quite happy with the way things are done in her neighborhood. She likes the fact that they're allowed to be loud, and the fact that they have giant block parties that close off the entire street. Although her older sister has an instant connection with the oldest of the Darcy boys, Zuri and Darius Darcy do not get along at all. Sparks are flying, but not the good kind. So it's a book about family and community and what happens when someone comes into that community and the assumptions that can go both ways. I love Pride and Prejudice, and there were times that the way she interpreted things blew me away. I just thought it was so good. Oh my gosh, I gave it 5 stars. Okay, guys, I gave it 5 stars. If you're an audiobook person and you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, I don't recommend listening to it while you are driving, because there will be places that like something will happen and it will be so like clever and amazing that you will be yelling and like just you will lose your mind, and it's you might wreck your car. I didn't, but there were a few close calls there, guys. The characters, the way she updated them, some of them are direct analogs. Zuri and Darius are direct interpretations of Lizzie and Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. If you're worried about your Pride and Prejudice story not looking like a Pride and Prejudice story, if you're worried about it doing some sort of other crazy stuff, like that's not what happens with these two. It's still very much about Zuri and Darius' relationship, and that animosity and that misunderstanding on both sides. Like it's all still there. They are still the same people. She's still judgy. He's still proud. It is fantastic. But some of the ways that she interprets some of these characters is just, it's fascinating. She came up with interpretations that I'm just like, that's genius. I don't want to spoil anything because it's all spoilers. Just the way that she modernizes some of the characters, it works so well while still keeping it mostly the same like story that you have in Pride and Prejudice. She does such a good job of interpreting the 5 Bennet sisters and like making their different things. Like instead of being obsessed with religion, Marisol is obsessed with money. She's a money got Mary. She's always like telling her sisters how they can save money and how they can make more money, and like she's got all the numbers figured out. This girl she's got it. And then you have Janae, who is obviously Jane Bennet, and she has been off to college and she's come back with like this wider view of the world, and Zuri is shook about this. Because Zuri's whole world is her little neighborhood. She's planning to go away to college and then come back and help her neighborhood. And I loved how she updated these characters, but still managed to keep those that something that makes Pride and Prejudice so special. She still kept that about the characters. I loved how relatable Zuri was, even when I didn't agree with her. Even when I was like, girl, maybe don't jump so fast to that judgment. I still I understood the thought process and why she did. And I think that Ibi Zoboi did a really great job of like communicating that and showing how she, like, so many people can be brought to that point where you're just so used to one reaction from people that you just assume that that's how they're going to react to you. Like, it just is, you end up so attached to all of these characters, even the ones like, and there are some that you end up wanting to kick out of their big fancy house. We all know which character I'm talking about. The one thing that I did miss was, because of the more modern setting, Colin was not as ridiculous as he could have been, and that is one of my favorite parts about Pride and Prejudice is Mr. Collins being absolutely ridiculous, but at the same time, I didn't even, like, until this moment, I didn't even realize that I missed that. I actually like how she worked that story, I will say. The plot was just, it was good, it was clever, she kept it moving. She kept you in anticipation of those certain plot points when you're doing an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice that you know it's gonna hit. She did such a clever job of twisting the narrative so that it fit a modern setting. I can't tell you because I don't want to ruin the surprise, but she brought social media into it, very much like you have in the Lizzie Bennet diaries. She brought school and college applications. She did such a good job of giving the characters a motivation to be where they needed to be for that whatever scene it was. In Pride and Prejudice, there are just certain scenes that were iconic, and so rather she could have very easily just fallen into this trap of just okay, we're gonna do this scene and we're gonna do this scene and we're gonna do this scene, and they're gonna go there because it's what happens in Pride and Prejudice. And I'm sure there was some of that there, but the way she worked the plot and the motivations, they had a reason to be in those spots for those moments. So it all worked together, and it wasn't just hey, I'm gonna throw in this scene because it happened in Pride and Prejudice. No, that scene needed to be there as much as it did in the original Pride and Prejudice. She thought outside the box. She didn't go with what could have been the easy answer. There were a couple of places where I was oh, I think I know what she's gonna do here. And she did it, but in a way I was not expecting entirely. Especially towards the end, I didn't catch on to that until very, very, that was good. She didn't just go with the easy option plot-wise. She could have done the entire thing and stayed in Brooklyn, but she doesn't, which I thought was great. And then speaking of Brooklyn and Bushwick, she does such a great job of building that world for you, of building Zuri's world. You literally can see her sitting on her front stoop, like she does many, many times in the book. You can hear the noise of Bushwick and how everyone is kind of in everybody else's business and how the block party goes. You can feel the atmosphere, you know what it looks like, because she does such a good job of just building that. I don't have any real negatives for this book. The only things that ticked me off were things that were part of plot or character growth, so they kind of needed to happen, they needed to be there. Listen, Zuri's judgy at the beginning. That rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. There were a couple of places where I was just girl, really? Is that you? Really? But at the same time, that's part of the story arc that is being taken from Pride and Prejudice, because Lizzie starts out judgy too. It's not as grating in Pride and Prejudice to me because you're not in a first-person narrative, but still, it's an issue. It's a definite issue, and I'm glad that Lizzie is no longer that way at the end of the book. I can't really say that they're a negative because they're plot points and they're there for a reason, and something constructive happens out of them. So, if they were just there as just hey, I'm gonna throw that in there, then I'd be having an issue. I would like to reread it in physical form because it goes back and forth between poems that Zuri has written and then Zuri's narrative. And I listened to it as an audiobook, so it was a little bit harder to keep track of those and figure out where kind of the spoken word stopped and the actual story began. So I would like to just kind of reread it in physical form so that I can see kind of the break and understand that a little bit better. It was narrated by Elizabeth Acevedo, which was really, she did a phenomenal job. That is what I thought of Pride by Ibi Zoboi. I really recommend that you read it if you like retellings, if you like Pride and Prejudice, if you're not Black and you're looking to understand other perspectives outside of your own. It's great. I thought it was a great book. I thought it was a really, really good look into the life of this family, almost like a slice of life story where we get in this girl's head for a season of her life. And one of the things that I did like about it, that while it did tackle social justice issues and it did talk about gentrification and racial profiling, the way those were raised up, it wasn't a book about Black pain, it was a book about Black people. That is my review of Pride by Ibi Zoboi. If you like retellings of classics, it's a really clever take on Pride and Prejudice, and I think a lot of people who enjoyed Pride and Prejudice and enjoy YA will enjoy this book. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also hit that subscribe button. I would love to see your lovely face here on a regular basis. Don't forget you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. I am at the word nerd on both of those, and that's a 3 in nerd instead of the E. I will have all of that linked down below for your convenience. That is it for now, my friends. I hope you have a lovely time reading whatever you're reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!